Hello, I see some people here, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. It is recording for people who are not here. So, hi, I am Carla from There Might Be Cupcakes podcast. For those of you who don't know me, this is my 4th year of podcasting. I don't know if you see, I have a puffy face and I have a couple of sores I've covered up. I am chronically ill. I have Ehlers-Danlos and POTS and MCAS and fibromyalgia, so I have alphabet soup. So if I appear to be a little confused, that's brain fog. I've never done it live before. I always read from my script, so if I seem a little confuzzled or my face gets a little puffier or it gets a little red, don't be alarmed. I'm just sick, that's all. Welcome everybody. I'm glad to see you here. I see some people join in. I am brand new to Get Vocal, so again, if you see me fumbling, that's also me looking around at messages and stuff. I have made a little outline of all of my experiences, including my paranormal experiences, including the new ones that have just happened within the past week. And I was shocked to see how long the list was. Apparently, I'm kind of a paranormal antenna. Let me just click over and post this to the Facebook page that I am up and running. And then I will start sharing. Let's see. So happy my residential up on a mountain satellite internet is working. We are actually upgrading. They were supposed to upgrade yesterday. They did not come. I was verklempt. So it will be much better connection and I will not be grainy next time. All right. Facebook is not loading. I'm going to go ahead and start talking. So my first experience, I had experiences in childhood, but the first experience I want to talk about what happened in Massachusetts. I was an adult. It was actually at my first husband's parents' house. It was an older house. I think it was built around the time of, if you're familiar, Levittown, when they first started building suburbs. So it was 40s, 50s, and it was the type of house where you have adult get-togethers, you have a parlor upstairs, and the bedrooms are upstairs, and then you have the family rumpus room downstairs. And that's where the washing machine is, and things get funky downstairs. You watch TV, you smoke, you drink, that kind of thing. And I noticed that there was a kitchenette downstairs, which is very unusual. Sorry, I'm adjusting so I'm in frame. That's very unusual. There was a kitchenette and a full bathroom with a shower. That's also very unusual. And a door going out into the driveway. But I didn't ask about it. And there was a party. And there was I'll tell him in the opposite order I was going to tell him in. There was a party and they invited all of the family. And there was much more family than there was room. And I'm an introvert. If you don't know from listening to the podcast, I'm extremely introverted. And I do not like crowds, even when I know all of the people involved. And I got very overwhelmed very quickly. And so I thought, well, I'll go down to the basement. I'll have a breather, and then I'll come back. So I thought I'll go downstairs. I'll sit on the couch for the TV and just have a breather. And I went down the stairs, and the stairs were very steep. Stairs go down from the kitchen. They're very steep, and I went down, and there's a blind corner. And then the blind corner is even more blind because the basement had columns. These big cement columns, very unattractive. and you couldn't see the rest of the basement. So you come and all you can see is the washing machine and then this giant stone column. It's like every basement in every horror movie, like the basement in The Conjuring. It looked just like that. Very unappealing, very spooky. And I went around the blind corner, and then I went past that column, and I could see the two couches in front of the TV at the very far end of the basement. And then superimposed over the second sofa against the wall, I could see a hospital bed. And I could see the sofa through the hospital bed. And on the hospital bed was an old lady. And she wasn't looking at me. She didn't seem to be aware of me. But I could see the two items perfectly together. The hospital bed was where it should be. It was on the floor. And I could see all the details. And I could see her. And I could see all her apparatus. I could see an IV and all her needs. That hospital side table that's so awkward. And I could see the sofa perfectly through it. I could see the window. And I felt this feeling kind of out of time. Like I shouldn't be here. I almost didn't know where it was for a moment. And then I hauled ass back upstairs to the party. And I got my first husband outside for a moment and told him. And that's when he bothered to tell me that the reason that there was an entire little apartment downstairs is that the previous owners of the home had this lighting is harsh. I'm going to turn off the overhead. The reason that there was an entire little apartment downstairs, an entire kitchenette and bathroom and a door to the driveway, is that the previous owner's mother had gotten ill and had not been able to traverse those awful stairs. And so they placed her downstairs away from company and set up a little, setup for her. And she'd been able to cook for herself and go to the bathroom. And she'd had her little hospital bed there by the window so she could see out and watch the neighbors. And she would yell through the old wide vents if she needed them, which leads me to my second story. Which is one of the scariest things that's ever happened to me. Okay, I was getting ready. I was alone in the house, and I was getting ready to go somewhere. I don't remember where because this story frightened me so much. What happened frightened me so much that I kind of forgot where the rest of my day, messed with my memory. So I'm in the upstairs bathroom, and I'm getting ready to go wherever. And like I said, this house was built in the 40s, and so it had those huge vents in the floor and in the ceiling, the kind that you could yell through and be heard and the kind that you could eavesdrop. And I was, I think I was doing my hair, something. I didn't wear much makeup. And I heard someone talking through the vent. And at first it was just talking, it didn't seem to be directed at me. It was just, and it was very clearly an old lady. And it sounded gentle and non-threatening, but I just had this feeling of dread. Like I should not respond in any way. I should not let her know I'm home. I should not let her know that anyone's in the house. And the architecture setup of this house was such that I was kind of trapped. All of the windows were small and up high. And yeah, I was scared enough that I actually pondered going out a window. And this is why. The opening to the basement, I had to go past it to go out either door. The side door was in front of the stairwell. And the front door, I had to go past it. This is a weird house. She kept talking and kept talking and kept talking. And at first, like I said, the voice just seemed to be conversing with someone. Then she started calling out for something. She wanted something. And then it felt like she started calling for me, like she knew I was there. And I got the feeling she wanted something, like she wanted a drink of water, she needed food, and it got more insistent and it got louder. And I really started pondering, could I fit through one of those high transom windows? Could I go out their bedroom window? You know, the thought of going past that dark stairwell to the basement to get out the door, to get out one of the doors, was just horrifying. It was a moment out of a horror movie. And I'm going to take off my glasses. Maybe they're reflecting. And it felt like I was in that house for days, listening to her call to me. No, I'm not. I'm blind as a bat. And then finally, I got up the adrenaline to run for it. And I literally ran for it. And I ran through the parlor, the other side of the basement stairs, and out the front door. And the part that frightened me the worst is when I got outside and I slammed and locked the door and I sat down the front steps to catch my breath and to get this adrenaline rush over, is I could hear her through the outside basement transom windows. You know, those little tiny basement windows. And she was calling me honey and calling me to come back inside the house. She knew I'd left. Yeah, that's probably the most frightening, one of the most frightening experiences I've had. I hated that house after that. I don't know what I thought she was going to do to me, but I never wanted to see her again. And I don't know why. Like, she didn't look at me when I saw her, but I never wanted to see her again. And, I never wanted to see her again. And I didn't want to know if she knew my name. Since she was calling me honey and telling me to come back in the house, I think I had this fear that she knew my name. I never slept well in that house again. I hated that house after that. All right, so I said that our current house is haunted and stuff is still happening now. So we'll go to that. Our house was built in, I think, the late 1960s, 1969, 1970, by my husband's family, my current husband. And we live in a heavily Monacan Indian area. There are strange, I'm sorry, I'm fiddling with the laptop. I've never done this before. So if my head's bobbing around, I'm not getting the papers. I'm just not used to this. I apologize. Our house was built, like I said, like 1960s, 1970. There are strange land mounds and stone mounds on our property, but I don't know what they are, and I've never seen anything weird. I don't know anything about, well, I'm babbling. I don't know anything about anything being disturbed. Sorry, something popped up. I don't know about anything being disturbed. So, Lakeisha, thank you. Hi. And thank you, Fox. Sorry. That's what distracted me. I got text messages and I got my very first tip. You're a doll. Okay. So, there are really weird stone mounds and land mounds on our property. I've been told it was stuff moved by construction, but they're way far away from the house. We have 17 and a half acres and they're over yonder. So, I don't know. Powwows have been held on our property really early on when the family used to just camp here before the house was built. I don't know. I'm not educated about any of that. I'm just letting y'all know. Okay, so the usual activity around here. There's impossibly loud sounds, and they're usually only heard by one person. The people that live here are me and Larry, my husband, and Larry's mom, Margaret. There'll be an impossibly loud sound, and only I will hear it, or only Larry will hear it, or only Larry and Margaret will hear it, and I won't hear it. Somebody gets left out who should have heard it. And the sounds are booms, thuds, door slam when a door didn't shut. All doors are open. A thud or a knock on a wall. Sounds of boxes falling. Like the sound of a stack of boxes falling. There's no stack of boxes. Or glass breaking. And there's no glass broken. One really interesting that happens is banging on an impossible wall. For example, what's my office used to be my bedroom. I've moved rooms. I've heard banging on that outside wall. That's impossible because we're on a mountain. Our house is on uneven land. That wall is 7 feet in the air. It's also made of brick and stone. To bang on it, you would have to hover in the air and hit it with a sledgehammer. So things like that. I've seen shadow people. Twice I have had a shadow person bending over me when I've woken up. Like someone checking on me to see if I'm asleep or like tucking me in. I've several times seen someone crouching by the banister. We have, ironically, the same kind of house where we have a downstairs and we live upstairs. And I can see the banister from my office. And I've several times seen someone crouching by the banister. And then when I see them, they take off. It's like they're crouching for a race. And then when they're seen, they run. And they run into the wall. Once I heard someone tell me to come here. It was at bedtime. My bedroom was dark, and I sat down, and I was untangling my CPAP cord, I think. And someone said very close to me, "Come here." And I froze like, "Oh, okay, I didn't hear that." And then they said, "Come here." And I'm thinking, yeah, I shouldn't answer this. And I decided to get up and go in the other room. Like, okay, we're going to reset bedtime. And I stood up and I heard, "Come here." And I hightailed it. I haven't heard that again. And I haven't heard voices like that again. That's never happened again. Our house is weird like that. Something will happen like that. It's peculiar. And then never happen again. What repeats is the impossibly loud noises all the time and the shadow people. This hasn't happened in a while, but it happened several times years back. I would hear the routine sounds of Larry coming home from work 10 or 15 minutes before he did. I believe that's called a tulpa when something creates like that. I need to do the research on that. But he would come in. I'd be downstairs. My bedroom used to be downstairs before my pain got too bad. And I would hear him come in, open the door, close the door. I'd hear his footsteps. I'd hear him put his keys down. I'd hear the keys jingle. Hear him walk across the kitchen. I'd call to him. Nothing. 10 minutes later, you'd hear him open the door, close the door, put his keys down, and hear his keys jingle, and hear him walk across the floor. And that would happen over and over and over and over. And then one time, this has only happened once, I saw a large black shadow between me and my closet. It was in the other room before I switched rooms. I woke up in the middle of the night and I couldn't see my closet. There was just a black shadow. It was just, my closet was gone. And I shut my eyes and I prayed and I prayed and I prayed and I fell asleep in the middle of that. And when I woke up again in the middle of the night, I could see my closet. That happened to me once at Boston University. I was scouted. I went to Boston University for my master's in counseling, but I was scouted by them for undergrad. And Mom and Dad and I went and stayed in one of the dorms and for the scouting. And we stayed in a dorm room meant for 4 people. And I slept in one of the rooms and Mom and Dad slept in the other room. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I couldn't see the door to the other room. It was all black. So that's the second time that's happened to me. I'd forgotten about that. And I'm convinced that the dogs have seen more than I have seen and heard, because I was in my bedroom when my bedroom was my office, and I was watching some reality show. I think it was Teen Mom, of all things. And the TV got real quiet, and then one of the girls on it went, "Hey!" And Arlo, our Staffy Pit mix, jumped up, pointed at the wall in between my bedroom and office, like he was pointing an animal, scouting, ran out of the room, and then hid under furniture and would not come back. I found it odd that he pointed at the wall and he didn't point at the TV, which was the source of the noise. So I'm convinced that they've seen and heard stuff that I have no idea about. So stuff lately in the past week, ever since I've decided to do this as the topic, the water faucet in the bathroom turned on while I was looking at it. Turned wide open. It's getting dark in here. I'm going to turn the light back on. Turned wide open. And within about 24 hours, my facial scrubber, I have a facial scrubber that helps me wash my face without hurting myself. And so basically it's a little round thing. It was one of those things you didn't know you'd love on Amazon list. And it's basically a battery operated scrubber, and it has a pumice stone and a brush and all those things. And it was sitting on the side of the sink. And while I was looking at it, it started spinning, but it was off. And I've heard voices, and it was just someone speaking in the other room, and I couldn't tell what they were saying. When that happens, it's usually a woman, and I don't know why. So things have ramped up oddly, stuff that's never happened before since I decided to do this show. So we'll see what happens tonight. I'll let you know. All right. So my childhood home, I told you I was haunted. My childhood home was built on a quartz mine. The entrance was in the backyard, and it kind of looked like a giant anthill that had been filled in. I mean, literally the entrance was in our backyard. So that probably had a lot to do with it. One thing that would happen so frequently that I just remember, it's a common childhood memory. Mom and Dad's closet was the wall of my bedroom, and their hangers would just swing in their closet and hit my wall. And I remember just standing in my room and staring at the wall and listening to the hangers bang, just back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. I remember, I'm extremely introverted, and as a child, I was extremely shy. Like, it was a problem. I was shy around my relatives, so my room was my haven. I was all day, every day in my room by myself, Barbies and books and me. But I was afraid to go to my room at night to get anything, like really afraid. My feet would be cold, and I'd go to get a pair of socks, and I would do this performative thing going down the hall. We had a small house. It was one of those 1970s long straight houses where it's laid out kitchen, den, hallway, bedrooms. So it was just a straight shot. You could see my room from the den. You could literally just, there she is. You could throw a ball from the den to my room. But I would do this performative thing where I would go down the hall yelling, "Mom, Dad, I'm just going down the hall to get my socks. I'm getting them. I'll be right there. I'm getting them out of the drawer right now. I'm just getting them. Okay, I've got them. I'm coming right back." The whole time. I'm sure it was delightful to listen to. As soon as it got dark, I was afraid of that side of the house. I have no explanation to it. I have no memory of it. One point, this had to be later than that. A drawer slammed shut on me. Almost broke my fingers. I opened it. I got something like a pair of socks. Reached in, pulled my hand out. Bam! It had to be later because I remember telling my attorney friend, Jeff, about it. And he gave me a paranormal book, which I still have. And he's the one that told me, it's actually this one. And he gave it to me, telling me that there are 3 errors in it. And it was my job to read it with an open mind and find the errors. And he also said that some people exhibit trauma. You know, I talked about on the podcast, but my little brother died when I was 9. He was 7. And we had kind of a medical household because of his physical issues. And he gave me the book, and he gave it to me, and he wouldn't let go of it. So we're just kind of both holding it. It was after he told me it had errors in it. And he said, you know, some people manifest trauma by giving off this negative energy and being really difficult to be around. And they don't do it on purpose. They just give off this negative energy. And he said some people give off psychic energy and things happen around them. And then he said, talk to anybody, kid? Which was Jeff speak for thinking about seeing a therapist. And I did. But yeah, this is actually a pretty decent book. It looks like it's Great Mysteries by John Grant. It looks like one of those cheesy Reader's Digest books. It's not. I admit I haven't found the mistakes yet. I need to do that. I really do. But the scariest thing that happened to me in that house, and it's one of the scariest things that's ever happened to me in my life, it's the first frightening thing, is I got my own phone number because my parents, about 5th grade, 6th grade, my parents were tired of me hogging the phone. It was about that time. And I got my own phone number in my room, and I started getting silent phone calls. Not heavy breathing, not obscene, just silent. And I got tired of it. So I left my phone off the hook. And Mom and Dad informed me real quick that they got tired of, if you would like to make a call, echoing down the hallway. So I figured out, being a little smarty, that if you take the phone off the hook and unplug the receiver, no one can hear that. So I take my phone off the hook and unplug the receiver, and I put it on my stereo speaker, which, because I'm old, stereo speakers were the size of bookcases. So I just plop it right there and go about my day, and then plug it back in and hang it up if I want to talk to somebody. And yes, because I'm old, you have to physically hang it up and depress the doohickey, I don't know what they were called, to hang up the phone. Which means if I did that, no one could call. So I did that one night because I got a couple of calls, and I walked out of the room, and my phone rang. It still gives me a little bit of chills. And I literally walked backwards back into the room like they do in horror movies. Like, no, it didn't just happen. And I stared at my unplugged phone off the hook, ringing. And you know that scene in Nightmare on Elm Street where Nancy picked up the phone? Bad idea, right? Yeah. I picked up my unplugged receiver and I put it to my ear. And somebody laughed in my ear. I will never forget that as long as I live. I lost my preteen enjoyment for talking on the phone for a very long time. It may be, I never thought about it, but it may be why I really don't like talking on the phone to this day. I will never forget that sound. It wasn't a normal laugh either. It was a horror movie laugh. And I have no explanation for it. You know, yeah, I'm kind of rendered speechless telling the story. But yes, my unplugged, unhung up phone laughed in my ear. This weird, devilish, demonic laugh. Ugh, I'm kind of grossed out telling that story. Okay. All right. Then my parents and I moved to Charlotte. Okay. This house was messed up because of construction disruption. You know, you hear that houses, that haunting activity starts because of some kind of construction. People start tearing out the walls and weird stuff happens. People start flipping the house and weird stuff happens. Well, this house was doomed from the get because the contractors were shady, and they poured the foundation in 2 pours, and it cracked down the middle from back door to front door like an egg, and they didn't tell us. Remember that thing of Poltergeist where they didn't tell them? Yeah, they didn't tell us. And they filled it in with caulk and everything but toothpaste. They put cardboard in it and just don't tell them. That looks fine. So our house literally started splitting in half slowly. And we found out because the kitchen started splitting. So the house is slowly splitting, and Mom and Dad are trying to sue the contractors and the builders so that we can get it fixed. And it's slowly, literally cracking in half, and things start happening. At first, it was the TV would go on and off by itself, and light bulbs would die really, really quickly. Like really quickly. Like Dad would put in a new light bulb, and the next morning it would die. They would also blow really dramatically. Like you would turn on the light and then Grandpa! It was alarming. Then there was the times Mom and I were trying to watch a Lifetime movie. Mom talks about this a lot. Mom and I were watching a Lifetime movie, and it was suspenseful. And at the suspenseful parts, the babysitter is trying to sleep with the dad, or, so-and-so is trying to kill so-and-so. Right at those moments, the TV would go off, and then it would come back on at the commercial, and then it would go off the suspenseful part. It was literally like somebody messing with you with the remote. And I don't know what made me do it, but I said, leave us alone. We're trying to watch this movie out loud. And the TV came on and stayed on. So Mom and I just looked at each other and didn't say anything, and we silently watched our movie. So I think maybe a week later it happened again. And this time I was cross-stitching, and I had those big honking scissors. I had these scissors from my great-grandmother, the kind you could hammer a nail with, just giant scissors with the big screw in the middle. And they were laying balanced on that screw. And I said it again, cut it out. We're trying to watch this movie. The TV comes on, but those scissors opened on the table and started spinning on their midpoint. Spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. Like, okay, well, I'm irritating you, well, you're irritating me. And that's when the tappings and scratching started. Only to me. It was on the wall above and beside my bed. And it was always to wake me up. And it was just, and scratch. And I had undiagnosed sleep apnea, because of course I do. And it was, undiagnosed at that time. So I had a lot of trouble waking up in the morning. And it would mess with me. And I made the mistake again of talking back to it, like, not yet. Tap, 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 until I got up. It was very intelligent, and I shouldn't have been talking to it. And then doors started opening and closing in front of me. I don't know I'm not sure if they happened in front of Mom and Dad. Mom's here. You can say something in chat if you want to. Mom, just type. But they would literally, I'd be walking towards the door, and it would open in front of me and then close behind me. One thing it really liked to do is imitate our dachshund. Baron would take a nap on Mom and Dad's bed, and then jump down and get, I think the internet calls it the zoomies. We called it the rips. But he would jump down from their bed and then run all over upstairs. Well, I was downstairs reading, and Baron woke up from his nap. There he goes. And then I looked over, and Baron was sitting next to me on the couch. And Baron and I both looked up at the ceiling and listened to Baron running all over upstairs. That happened lots of times. One thing that only happened to Dad was the hostility. Dad got told to get out a lot. And only from the garage door. The garage door, which will come to play later, was from the kitchen. You go in from the garage to the kitchen door. And anytime he passed through that door, he would be told literally to get out, just like the Amityville Horror. I was told to get out, in a sense, one time when I was living in an apartment with my first husband, and I had come over to get some of my books. It was mostly books, I think. And the doors were really opening and closing for me. It was like I was being helped. I would go from room to room, and the door in front of me would open and it would close. And it was incredible. It was like I had a butler. And I sat down on the upper step, and I put my books down next to me, and I tied my shoe. And I stood up, and the remaining doors that were open closed. And I don't know why I did it. I should have never talked to whatever was going on. And I said, well, I really do got to go now. And from behind me, about right here, so I guess like a 5'7", 5'8" person, right here behind me, a man's voice said, well, just go then. I threw my books. I literally went, boom, and ran. And then I left a very scattered voicemail on Mom and Dad's machine explaining why they had about 20 books all over their stairs. And I apologized to Dad about that later, and he said, that's a message I'll never forget. Then there was the night that our dachshund Gretchen screamed like a woman. We were all in the den, and our house had, I think it was supposed to have a parlor. We never used it. Dad had his like roll top desk in there and a random couch. And Gretchen liked to sit on that random couch, and it faced the front stairs. And we were all in the front den, where we usually hung out, where the TV was. I was reading, they were watching TV, something like that. And Gretchen screamed. There's no other word for it. She screamed, she shrieked. It sounded like an adult woman. And we all ran to her, and she was still screaming. And she was staring at the stairs, and her eyes were bugging out of her head. I've never seen anything like it in my life. And when we all finally physically got to her, she stopped screaming, but she wouldn't stop staring at the stairs. And her eyes were literally coming out of her head, and she was trembling, and she was drooling. And I thought she'd had a heart attack. I really did. I think we had to give her a Benadryl to calm her down. And it was hard to get her off the couch. She was kind of clinging to it like a cat would. We didn't hear anything that night. We didn't see anything that night, but we couldn't get her to go upstairs to bed that night either. That was really disturbing. I noted, before I tell you the big story of me and Dad and the knocking, I noted, I couldn't find the book, of course, but Brad Steiger's book, it's Real Ghosts, Restless Spirits, and Haunted Places. And I'll link it on the website. But 2 different locations noted the repeated sound of the winding of a very large clock. And I wrote in my reading journal that I'd heard that at Dad and Mom's house in Charlotte several times. And I know that sound very well because Dad collects clocks, antique clocks. And so goes around every Sunday winding them. And I didn't realize until I read that I'd heard that sound and just acclimated to it. Okay, so the night of the knocking. Both of my grandmothers happened to not be doing very well. And so I came back from up here in Virginia to Charlotte. And at the time, my parents were divorced. They're now remarried. Yay. But they were divorced at the time, and Dad was staying in that house, and it had been repaired. And the construction had been newly done, I think. And Dad went to bed about 10, I think. And I stayed downstairs on the couch reading. And it was about 3 in the morning, of course. And someone knocked on that garage door, which meant they were inside the locked garage. Just knock, knock, knock. Very sharp and strong. Very clearly knock. And I was wide awake. I knew what I heard. And they knocked again before I could even catch my breath. So I ran upstairs to Dad. I said, someone is in the house. So he got his bit in Louisville Slugger that he keeps under the bed. And he comes downstairs and he's telling me all the whole time, it must be the vibration of your cell phone on the counter. And I'm like, my cell phone's dead. You know. And we get downstairs and he's telling me all the different things it might be. And the knock comes again. So Dad hauls ass to the garage and he's checking everything. He's checking that back door to the backyard. It's locked. He checks the garage door itself. It's locked. He's looking under the cars. There's nobody. He comes back in the house. I don't think I heard what I think I heard. I don't think you heard what you think you heard. Somebody knocks on the front door. 3 knocks. Very strong. Dad runs to the front door. Nobody there. He shuts and locks the front door. Somebody knocks on the garage door. This went on for 20 minutes. Knock, 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 knock. Until Dad just couldn't take it anymore and said, I don't know what's going on, but there's no one in the house. I've got to go to bed. I'm not going to think about it. And he went to bed. And there was one more knock on the garage door to like go, yep, I did that. And then it stopped. And I didn't sleep. And to the best of my knowledge, it never happened again. It was a one-time event, but damn, that was eerie. So that's Mom and Dad's house in Charlotte. So Waverly Hills Sanatorium. I investigated with CPRI, which is the Center for Paranormal Research and Investigation. It's a very serious investigation group. They are research-based. They are now working with, they were doing homes as well as trying to help people in their homes. But now they are working to help historical sites like Bacon's Castle here in Virginia, giving tours and investigating historical sites to help them stay afloat, which is awesome. I have one of their videos from Waverly Hills on my site, and it's in the link I put in the chat of the blog post I created. So Waverly Hills, I went with their second investigation. I couldn't get out of work for the first one. So I was in a lower level operation room. There's several big ones. If you don't know, I'm sorry. Waverly Hills was a tuberculosis sanatorium in Louisville, Kentucky, and housed adults and children. They now operate tours and allow professional investigations, and they have a haunted house every Halloween. So I was in a lower level operating room with a partner who saw this. And at first my hair was fondled. Like it reminded me from behind. And it reminded me of when we would be in elementary school and we'd be in line for something, a line to go to the playground or to come back from the playground or to go to lunch or to come back from lunch. And somebody behind you would braid your hair or just play with it because they're bored. So it was just first from behind, just, playing with it. And I don't think my partner saw anything, but I felt it definitely. And then a Hank on the left side was, let me get in camera, was picked up like this and dropped. And then picked up and dropped. Just like a full fondle like that. And then I heard a breath in that same ear. And then later, with a different partner, my friend LaDonna, we were sitting in the morgue. And I have researched this and found that other people have had this same experience. I'll preface this with saying I do have a migraine disorder, but my migraines are nothing like this. I got a sudden punch in the face migraine sitting in the morgue. We've been sitting there for about 10 minutes. They wanted us just to sit there and see what happened. Well, something happened. I went from no pain to I thought my brains were coming out my nose. It was that sudden. And it did not respond. I always have my migraine meds and my pain meds with me. It didn't respond to the migraine meds, which are fabulous. It didn't respond to pain meds. I had to spend the rest of it was so bad I thought I was going to have to go to the hospital. And I had to sit the rest of the investigation in the recon room, which was a big recreation room, I think, hunched over equipment, just, in the fetal position. What was odd is that room was very brightly lit, and that bright light did not bother me. It didn't bother my eyes. It didn't make the pain worse. A normal migraine, I would have, just thinking about that room would hurt. Again, I found out that was a common occurrence for investigators. I'd also like to point out that when I got in the car, the pain lessened. And when we got to the hotel 10 minutes away, the pain was gone. I don't know what caused it. All I know, it's happened to other people, and my migraines aren't like that. I had an incident, it's short and sweet, but I had an incident in high school with my best friend, Joshua. We mentioned on the podcast before. We've been friends since we were both 15, and I'm now 48. I was over at his house, and I'm prone to having a large keychain. I had a lot of things on my keychain, and bits and bobbles and all kinds of stuff, and I'm fidgety. So when I was leaving his house, I was jingling my keychain. I can tell you that for a fact. And we get to my car, and I sit down, and I don't have my keys. And we looked everywhere. I know it was probably 15, 20 minutes. It was to the point of, we're talking about who we need to call. That's how long we looked. And then I saw my keychain fall from the sky. Literally fall from the sky. I saw it, what do they call it? Biolocate, I guess. I saw it fall from the sky about, let me see if I can get the camera, about from yay high. I had a Honda Prelude, so it was a low riding car. So my car only came to about right here above my head. And I saw it fall just about above, a couple inches by my car, from the sky, and hit the cement by his feet. And what's interesting is his experience was different. He felt them hit his sneaker from the side, like someone kicked them at him. And I think that's the most interesting thing about the experience, is that we both experienced something bizarre, but very different. But my keys literally disappeared out of my hand for 15 minutes and then fell from nowhere. So I think it's worth noting. I've had a weird life, y'all. All right. I had one experience in the Girl Scouts, of all places. We went to Wilmington, North Carolina, and were privileged enough to be able to stay overnight on the USS North Carolina battleship. And we didn't know it was haunted going onto it, but we found that if we took a tour of it, so we knew about the lower hull where all the work got done, where the men who ran the battleship worked. And then one of us found out that if you went to the doorway, which I know is not proper battleship terminology, but if you went to the doorway and leaned through, of course, I just leaned my laptop, sorry about that. If you leaned through, it was like putting a battery on. It would turn the sounds on. If you leaned through, suddenly the ship would come to life. You would hear machinery turn on. You would hear men talking and shouting to each other, and the ship just came to life. And then you leaned back and stepped out of the hull, and the ship was silent again, which of course it was. There were no men on the ship. The ship was docked, and there were no seamen on the ship when we were there. There were no men on the ship when we were there. But it was like if you gave it attention, the past would turn on. And we did that all weekend. And we did it with this reverence. That was the feeling of it. It was reverence. Like we were being given a gift. Like we were being shown something that not everybody got to see. But you could hear the Navymen talking to each other and running the ship down through the hull, and you could hear the echoes. That was the eeriest thing about it. You could hear the echoes. I'll never forget that. All right, my last story I have on my list is the story of, it's my story related to the story of Alice Flagg and the Hermitage. She is in, her house is, the Hermitage is in Murrells Inlet, South Carolina. It has actually been moved because the current owner, who is a family member, decided not to give tours anymore, and I think the inlet was starting to flood. So it is no longer there, but I was able to tour it. The very short version, because I'm closing on an hour and I can't believe it. We haven't even talked about haunted house movies. I guess haunted house movies and books will be for next time. But anyway, Alice Flagg was from a very good family. And she was being guardianed, I'm making up a word, by her brother, Dr. Flagg, who felt that the family name was extremely important. And she started dating a man who worked the inlet. Stories differ as to about what he actually did, but I would assume fisherman. A lot of guys would do seining in the inlet, which is where you walk out a giant net and then walk it back in, and then you have all these lovely crabs and oysters and mussels and stuff. He may have done that. He may have been a fisherman. He may have been a sailor. Stories differ, but he was not appropriate for the Flaggs. And she secretly got engaged. And she went off to boarding school. She got engaged in the summer, and then she went back off to school. And while she was at school, she got some kind of fever, some kind of flu, and was sent home to convalesce. And she was wearing her ring on a necklace, hidden. Well, while she was in a fever, her brother got up in her business and found a ring around her neck and said, "Oh, no, you didn't," and tore it off her neck and threw it into the inlet. And she died crying for her ring, her engagement ring, and crying for her sailor. And people have seen her ghost in the inlet, seen a girl in a white dress looking in the water, looking for her ring. Well, Mom and Dad and I went and toured the house, and then it was owned by a lovely older gentleman who loved to tell stories. And we sat on the porch, and he told us a bunch of stories, not all related to the house or Alice. He was delightful. And then he took us on a tour of the house. And I had found a ring that day. It was a little gold ring, chip of flour, and it had a little chip diamond in it set in the flour. And I was wearing it, and it was kind of a snug fit because it was summer and just puffy and sweaty, and it fit, but it was a fit. And he took us to the house, and when we got up, we went up the stairs. I felt something on my hand. My hand felt right, and I looked down. And I'll do it with my ring. That ring was like, let's see, get it in, like that. It was dangling on my upper joint. And I thought, let's see what happens here. Let's see this thing through. And so I just left it there, and I just held my hand steady. And we went into a room, and we went all the way back through the house. And then we went, he told us the different places that he and his wife had seen her. They'd seen her in the rocking chair. They'd seen her in her room. And we went back through, and we went back on the porch. And the ring was back on my finger, shoved all the way down. I hadn't felt a thing when it gone back down. And then when we get back out of the house, then he tells us, anybody feel anything weird? Alice likes to try to take other women's rings. So I've still got that ring. I kept it. It isn't going to fit these fingers now, but I've still got it. So that's all of my stories for tonight. I have a couple of books to recommend. Let's see. Over here, I guess we'll talk about haunted house movies next time, because I didn't realize I would use so much of the hour. This is Unleashed, of Poltergeist and Murders: The Curious Story of Tina Resch It's by Dr. William Roll. He is a Arlo, the Staffy Pit's wanting to get up on the bed. Come on, Arlo. It is by Dr. Roll, who is, whoops, I'm still not used to the camera. He is the doctor at Duke University who studies parapsychology. He is the man. And this is the story of supposedly the only haunting that's killed somebody. Dr. Roll is the man to trust. And this is a very well-written book, and it's rather spooky. And it's one of the only books on a haunting you'll find that has notes and bibliography and is written like a serious study book. I know people have all kinds of feels about the Warrens. I happen to like them. A lot of people think they're frauds, blah, blah, blah. But this is probably the book to start with if you're interested. This is one of the scariest books I've ever read, but somebody living in a haunted house. It's called The Haunted, and it's not by the Warrens. It's by Robert Curran, Curran. It's about the Smurl family. What's interesting is they lived in a duplex. One of their mothers lived on the other side, and they had activity on both sides of the duplex. Different activity, which is interesting. I remember, I haven't read this in a while, but I remember it being chilling. I have a couple of movie inspirations for you. This, still in trouble with the camera, The Exorcism of Annalise Michel by Felicitas D. Goodman is the true story behind the exorcism of Emily Rose. I'll put all these on the website entry. This is the study of what happened to the girl that movie is based on. I happen to love that movie, by the way. It's one of the only cases of an exorcism that was taken to court. This is Possessed by Thomas B. Allen. This is the true story. I know we're getting a little off topic with exorcisms, but exorcisms are kind of haunted houses. I mean, I posted on Twitter yesterday, The Exorcist starts as a haunted house movie. You know, there's noises in the attic, her bed's moving. So, Possessed by Thomas B. Allen is the true story behind The Exorcist. It's the story of the case that inspired William Peter Blatty to write his novel. And then the big kahuna, if you want to read about hauntings, oh my God, I'm going to dislocate my wrist. This door knocker, Ghosts by Hans Holzer, the first investigator. You see how big this is. Oh my God, I almost knocked my desk over. This bastard is, let me see. I'm at 720 pages and I'm not at the back yet. I think it's about 800 pages. This is enough stories to keep you going. Hans Holzer is probably the first ghost hunter. He believed that you went in with a notebook and a good medium, and you listened, you wrote down the story, and you saw what the psychic had to say, and then you went from there. And it was all about just cataloging stories like I did tonight. You know, you didn't play around with cameras, you didn't try to be on TV, you didn't try to, use instruments. You saw, you heard, you felt, and you wrote it down. I think he was the very first investigator in people's homes, because Dr. Roll was investigating ESP and things like that. So Holzer may have been the first modern day investigator of ghosts. So I have used up my hour completely, and we didn't even talk about movies. I rewatched The Haunting today and thoroughly enjoyed it, as usual. It's the movie made from Shirley Jackson's perfect novel, The Haunting of Hill House. I watched it today for the character development instead of the scares, and was superbly impressed. People are haunted just the way houses are. And Jackson, I don't know why I'm seeing my glasses crooked. Probably because I'm nervous. Shirley Jackson understood that better than anybody. I don't know why all this stuff is following me. I don't feel scared in this house. The terrifying situations I've described have all been elsewhere. I don't know what's going on here. No one else seems to feel scared in this house. Oh, but one other note before I say goodbye. We will talk about haunted house movies and books my next time, because there are other awesome podcasts on Fandom Friday, and I don't want to take away from their time. But one other note, and I don't want to spook Mom, so sorry, Mom, for what I'm about to say. When I had my interview with Get Vocal, I was at Mom and Dad's house. And right before I started my interview, I heard a woman's voice. Just saying. I hope you guys have enjoyed my ghost stories. I hope you will enjoy some other of the Fandom Fridays podcast. I hope my awkwardness hasn't been too much. My future video shows will be much smoother. I really appreciate you being with me, and appreciate your tips and your cheering me on. This will be available on my channel and on YouTube. It's going to be recorded. The audio will also be available on my podcast channel this weekend sometime. And next time when I come back, we'll talk about haunted houses, movies, and books. And I hope you guys will bring your own haunting stories, because I want to hear yours next time. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for hanging in with me for my very first video and live podcast episode. I love you guys. Thank you. I did it. I did it.